an example. It's about kite surfing. Now, kite surfing is a sport that was developed by users. And what you can see up there is that the users were in fact, what you do, those of you who don't know kite surfing, I didn't until my students started to do it. But basically what it is an arched kite like that, and you have multiple kinds of wires here, and you can lift yourself off the ground, you sort of skate, go across the water. You fly in the air, and the result is that you almost have a reverse parachute. Now, the users developed this thing, and what happened then was manufacturers took over. They said, okay, this is now a $100 million market, we can begin to produce these things, that's great. Now what happened then was something very interesting. What happened was that somebody set up, a guy named Saul Griffith, set up a website. And on this website, he actually posted his own designs and invited others to post their designs. Now each of these manufacturers who had part of this $100 million market had one or two engineers. Saul posted his designs, others began to post their designs. And the people who joined were people like aerodynamicists from NASA, from Airbus and Boeing, people from the best aerodynamics departments in the best universities. And what happened was, they brought along with them tools. So they basically said, okay, we know as aerodynamicists about vortices and so on, and slow speed kites are a difficult aerodynamic problem apparently. So all that thing in the bottom there is these little vortices and so on, and we can model the kites and we can model them, and then we can share designs. And they shared designs as CAD files. Now, the result was that they drove the manufacturers back out of the design business. In other words, users collaboratively built tools, collaboratively shared designs, and drove manufacturers out. Now, when you think about collaborative design and the toolkit idea, what you see historically in mass customization is that you all build a toolkit that the user can interface to. Here what we have is the users building their own toolkits for collaborative design. Now, the collaboration is very important, and I will now flick backwards at the same speed I flick forwards. Frank, you didn't know this would be an issue. The collaboration is important for a couple of reasons. One is that everybody in this, how many of you know Linus's law? Do you know Linus's law? Don't? Linus's law. Oh. Okay. So, you know Linus Torvalds and Linux, obviously. So, in open source software, the issue is that you want a lot of collaborators. As you all maybe know, you have a lot of collaborators. So, in Linus's law, he says the reason that you want a lot of people collaborating is because everybody knows something somewhat different. Okay? So that when you are in the position of saying, I need to solve X, you will find somebody in that community that is just precisely right for solving X. He has solved it before or something like that. So in other words, he encodes that law as given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. So where are we now? What's happened is this. We're saying that users have innovated historically, but that collaborative user design is becoming so efficient that it's going to drive out manufacturer-based designs in many areas. And now what I'm saying is that, yes, and furthermore, what you have to do as mass customizers is to think about the piece of the problem that is ahead of the area where you have traditionally focused. Okay? Yes, it's important to be able to design for people. Yes, it's important to be able to provide them with tools to do what they need to do. But really, much of the action is going on in this world with these collaborative tools where things are being designed. Now, those of you who know about design processes and so on know that the digitization of all this stuff is proceeding apace. So that nowadays what we can do is we can actually design products in computers, we can test them in computers. So the possibility of forming these very large groups relatively instantly on the net is growing and growing and growing. Net result, the economics of this collaborative user innovation are getting better and better. Now here's another piece as to why this collaborative user innovation is beating out manufacturer innovation. Basically, what you have is a design space. And in the traditional fashion, if you look at those red boxes, in the traditional idea of producer-centered innovation, what would happen would be a manufacturer would explore a piece of that design space. For example, a manufacturer might design a new kite, and then another new kite, and cover 2 spots in that X. And then that manufacturer, because he spent money to develop those innovations, would patent them or protect them in some way and prevent anybody else from getting access. Right? Now that innovation, as I've told you, is getting cheaper and cheaper, the net result is that users can cover much more space. There are many more of them. The tools that they're developing are cheaper and cheaper, so that more and more people are empowered to act in the sphere. And because they freely reveal, they swamp the manufacturer design efforts. So, the result is then that we are shifting in that direction. So I love the idea that I can sort of say to you things like, you know, you really ought to do research on X, because it's like sending somebody else's army up the hill, you know? It's like, yes, you really should. But I really think here, the bottom line of this presentation is that yes, mass customization is really, really important, but so is the design that precedes it. And what we are working on nowadays, several of us, is this kind of tool set that comes up front. Now, the fascinating thing here is that users, as innovators, are developing tool sets. Now, here's Lego, okay? We have Lego fans, as you know. And one of the things that starts to happen is that they start to innovate. These are fan clubs and so on. And they're developing their own tool sets as they do. This comes from Yun Mi, who was somebody who worked with us a while back. And she studied these people in Lego. Now, Lego was a toy, but it was a toy that was played with by kids in sort of their neighborhood group. You know, a few of them would get together, they would play with this thing, and so on and so forth. Now, it turns out there are adult fans of Lego, for those of you who don't know, and they are passionate, okay? So there are communities again. You have a community that could design, and they're passionate about it. The wonderful thing that Yun Mi told me, it was just so great, was she said, did you know that what happens is these people are adults, and they grow up, and they play Legos as kids, and then they stop it at college or so, and then they pick it up again in their 30s or 40s. And they refer to the years where they did not play Legos as the dark years.